You're listening to Inside China Today on the SOH Radio Network. This next story is brought to you by Chris Thomas and relates to comments Chinese President Hu Jintao made at the World Summit and the rather vigorous backlash from former Chinese media personnel.
During the two-day World Media Summit held in Beijing last Friday, Chinese Communist Party leader Hu Jintao promised to facilitate foreign media coverage of China in accordance with China's laws and regulations, whose speech received anger and condemnation from former Chinese media personnel. Former editor of Xianxi television station, Ma Xiaoming, was removed from his position for supporting the 1989 student democracy movement. He told SOH Radio that holding the World Media Summit in Beijing was an affront towards media freedom. Ma said while holding the summit in Beijing, firstly, the issue of media freedom under the CCP's rule should have been questioned. Ma cites his own personal experience to demonstrate the fallacy of Hu's promise. In September, a NHK reporter from Hong Kong wanted to interview me in Xi'an. I was taken away from Xi'an by authorities because of this. Firstly, this invaded my right to engage in media and news dialogue, and secondly, the reporters' interviewing rights were also violated. I was taken away for nearly 1 month. This shows whether Hu Jintao's promise was true or not. Ma says the Chinese communist regime is now involved in much more than media control amongst domestic Chinese. He said, now the CCP is able to buy out and control many media channels that they previously had no access to. This includes many well-known foreign medias. The holding of the so-called World Media Summit is in fact another step in the CCP's control, cover-up and deceit of the world's media. Gao Yu, a two-time recipient of the International Women's Media Foundation's Courage Award, and former vice editor of China's Economic Weekly magazine, says, "What's this? You talk about media freedom and the freedom of speech, but can you trust Hu Jintao? Have a look at the state of control that China is under at the moment. During October the 1st, even internet access was blocked. What is the responsibility of the media? Conscience is most important for media personnel. With the disasters and failing human rights in China and North Korea, how can such countries set standards for improving foreign media access? How would you improve things? The changes would only become worse." Gao warns international media that their hope for the CCP to open up its media market is nothing more than wishful thinking. She said, "These media groups are allowed in China. For what? They want you to report on those things China wants. If you fail just a bit, you'll be sent packing. So foreign investors are able to earn all the money they want from the Chinese market as long as they cooperate with the CCP. However, if as a reporter you want to speak with the public or report on the true China, then sorry, you will lose your job. So under the current conditions, don't hold any illusions about the reality of China." Author Tia Liu was denounced as a rightist in 1957. He was also frank in saying that no, China would not have freedom of speech. China only has freedom of weaponry. Tia and other surviving rightist victims of the attack had published a booklet in memory of past events. The booklet is titled "The Minute Markings of the Past" and was banned by communist authorities prior to October the 1st. Thanks for listening. This is Chris Thomas for SOH Wellington, New Zealand.
And for our final story, it seems following China's National Day, dissidents and rights advocates have been as vocal as ever. The widespread media censorship during the lead-up and on National Day doesn't seem to have dented their resolve. And according to this next report, things don't seem to be getting any quieter in China. Caden Pearson with this report.
In the West, we are accustomed to certain standards and social norms. We've got freedom of belief, freedom of expression and speech, and freedom in the media. It is a known fact that the Chinese communist regime suppresses a whole bunch of basic human rights, all of these included. Chinese nationals who wish to explore the internet without restriction have to use special software like FreeGate. This software breaks through China's formidable firewall. Following China's National Day on October 1st, the voices of dissent did not quieten down the regime's hardline suppression. They are actually gaining momentum. So what's happening? Well, on the 8th of October, 15 Chinese scholars co-signed the Internet Human Rights Declaration. Following this, a report was penned by Liu Yonghong on October 10. It discussed the regime's control of free speech in the wake of the Beijing Olympics. And the China Civic Watch Network established a database of victims of Chinese psychiatric institutions, condemning the regime for its oppression of human rights and free speech. The Internet Human Rights Declaration raised 10 requests, including the guarantee of the right to express opinions on the Internet, editing rights, and the right to interview. The declaration stressed that the public should have the freedom and right to express their opinions without fear. It suggested naming October 10 as the Chinese Internet Human Rights Day. The report by Liu Yonghong monitored the control of discussion and speech in China after last year's Olympics and presented the trend of this control. The report suggests that a media law should be immediately drafted which aims to protect freedom of speech. It also suggested a removal of all Communist Party institutions which control free speech and calls for an end of internet surveillance and an opening up of banned literature. The Chinese Communist regime has not only implemented various methods to monitor and control the movements of dissidents and rights activists, they have sent mentally sane citizens to psychiatric institutions by force. The China Civic Watch Workshop published a report stating that during the so-called sensitive periods like the Olympics, the National Day celebration, the meeting of the National People's Congress, and the June 4th commemoration, the regime sent individuals they regard as elements of instability to psychiatric institutions. The report says this is one crucial means for the CCP to realize its so-called harmonious state. The China Civic Watch Workshop has decided to establish a database of victims of China's psychiatric institutions. It will collect information on psychiatric abuse cases. Spokesperson Liu Feiyue says everyone should all work at trying to expose these ugly truths and lay them out in the sun. Freedom of press can unveil the truth of matters in society, and media and journalists should be held accountable. However, the former editor of Chengdu Daily newspaper, Tie Liu, and former Xiaxi television station editor, Ma Xiaoming, told SOH that in China, freedom of press cannot be realized. Caden Pearson, SOH Brisbane.
Sadly, that concludes this edition of Inside China Today. If you simply can't get enough of ICT, then feel free to look through our back catalogue. Or you can wait till this Sunday when our next edition comes out. If you have anything you want to say to us, please email us at insidechinatoday@sohnetwork.com. Or if you prefer to leave a message, please visit www.insidechinatoday.net. I've been your host, Daniel Tang. You've been a lovely audience. Have a very, very good day. Thank you for listening to Inside China Today on the SOH Radio Network.